Hello, I'm Susan Woods of Susan Woods Nonprofit Solutions, and I thank you for your time. Unless you've been living on another planet, I'm sure you've heard that there have been major cuts in federal government grants, which are impacting the survivability of some nonprofit organizations. So, in this video message, I'm going to share with you from the title, How Nonprofits Diversify Revenues to Survive Major Cuts in Federal Grant Funding. And I want you to highlight in your mind the word federal. So let's get started. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. I'm sure you've heard this phrase in your life at some point or another. And it's an idiom meaning to risk all one has on the success or failure of one thing. And the source is from the Merriam-Webster dictionary. Don't put all your eggs in one basket the way that some nonprofit leaders have unfortunately done by relying on one source of revenues from the federal government. You see, some nonprofit organizations get all of their money from federal government grants, and that was not a good idea. But if you've been receiving federal grant money for years for your nonprofit organization, why would you really think it's going to end? Well, here we are. Here we are. I want to share with you this free guide that you can download using the QR code below. This is a free guide that I'm getting ready to share with you now called Revenue Diversification Strategies for Nonprofits. How nonprofit leaders diversify their revenue streams to survive chaotic times. So again, if you scan this QR code, you will be able to download this particular presentation of this particular free guide for your nonprofit library. What does revenue generation mean? Revenue generation means implementing strategies to raise money to offer community services. You are implementing different strategies to use to offer community services because, contrary to what some people believe, you need money. Nonprofit organizations need money to offer community services. Nonprofit leaders must use revenue diversification strategies to sustain the community services consistently and to reduce stress for the nonprofit team. And so we're going to discuss different strategies to raise revenues on the next few pages. Revenue diversification. Again, nonprofit organizations must use diverse funding options to survive. I created this presentation several years ago, and this information still rings true today. It is not feasible to believe that nonprofit organizations can survive or can provide sustainable community services relying upon one revenue source. And this is just so profound as we are in this season of the nonprofit sector. Examples of funding options include client fees, product fees, fundraisers, investments, and grant writing. These are some revenue diversification funding options, not just grant funding. There are other options that you can use as well. Let's talk about client fees. People hate to talk about this. They hate to hear me say you need to consider charging your clients fees for the services you provide to them. Just because you're a nonprofit organization, that doesn't mean you don't charge fees. The YMCA is a nonprofit organization, but I tell you what, I pay my fee every month to be a member. I don't go in there free of charge. So charging client fees is a revenue source. Some nonprofit leaders charge fees to participate in the community services the nonprofit offers, such as summer camps, such as the YMCA. The nonprofit leaders consider the demographic profiles of the clients they serve to determine the appropriate fees. You may not charge the same fee for every type of client, but you want to show the clients that it's important for them to invest in improving their own lives. That's important. You shouldn't want clients who expect free handouts all the time. Where is their incentive to get better? Product fees. Selling products is another revenue source. Some nonprofit leaders sell products through the nonprofit organization, such as, it is called unrelated business income, such as hats, mugs, t-shirts, books, and other types of products. The IRS has restrictions on the amount of revenues nonprofits can generate from selling products, but it is an option that you should consider. Fundraisers. Nonprofit leaders meet to create fundraisers to generate revenues. There are so many different types of fundraisers. The only limitation you have is your creativity. That's it. You have traditional fundraisers and social media fundraisers. The types of fundraisers nonprofit leaders choose depends on their skills and their capacity, meaning the time they have to dedicate to the fundraiser. So you want to meet as a group, as a team, to talk about some fundraising ideas for your nonprofit organization. Again, we're talking about revenue diversification. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. Let's talk about traditional fundraising strategies. Traditional fundraising strategies include old-fashioned, old-school methods to generate revenues for nonprofit organizations. And here's some examples. Telemarketing. Don't we love telemarketers calling us all the time for money? Direct mail. This still works so good when a person gets a piece of paper or postcard or something in the mail. That's called direct mail. You still can raise millions of dollars through this traditional method. Some people use raffle tickets. Some people create giving circles. Board members should be giving money to the nonprofits they serve on anyway. Solicitations, just asking people for money. What about those banquets we used to have, and talent shows, and Rotary clubs, and philanthropists, and you may even say, I want to hire professional fundraisers. If you hire professional fundraisers from the Association of Fundraisers, then they're going to charge a fee to raise money for you, but it may be worth it depending upon the time constraints you have. One thing I want to emphasize though is whatever type of fundraising activities you use or revenue generation strategies you use, you want your organization, your nonprofit organization, to have liability insurance. All nonprofit organizations should secure liability insurance to protect the board of directors, employees, volunteers, and clients. You want protection. Your indemnification clause that you included in your application to become a nonprofit organization is good, but having separate liability insurance is better. I don't even want you using these types of fundraising methods. Car washes, fish fries, games with blindfolds, eating competitions. Those are types of fundraising activities that are asking for trouble. Just don't do it. There are too many other options you can use without having to use these. Look at this young lady. She was trying to raise money for her soccer team at a car wash. Unfortunately, somebody came in, pressed the accelerator instead of the brakes, ran her over, and she lost a leg. This is a lifetime change. That's not necessary. You don't have to have car washes to host fundraisers. Don't do that. Don't put people in danger trying to raise money for a nonprofit organization. Let's talk about social media fundraising strategies. They are becoming more and more popular than a traditional fundraising strategies because they are pretty easy to set up. Social media fundraising is an umbrella phrase that is used to describe different processes to raise money online for nonprofit organizations, such as the word crowdfunding. There are many crowdfunding platforms that nonprofit professionals can use to secure the funds needed to offer community services. Many crowdfunding options. Here's some platforms, and of course, I'm not going to read all of them, but just take a look at the platforms that are available. Now, again, I did this presentation a few years ago, so some of them may not be used anymore. But at that time, look at the number of platforms that were available. And GoFundMe is still a very popular platform that people use to raise money for their nonprofit organizations. Many platforms, online platforms that you can use to raise money. TikTok is not on here because TikTok wasn't a thing when I did this presentation. Instagram, Facebook, all of those things, all of those ways that you can use to raise money. So the sky is the limit. Again, you're only limited by your creativity. Let's talk about some investments. Nonprofit organizations can accept tax deductible or tax free investments, donations. I prefer the word investments because it lets you know or make you feel as if you're going to get a return on what you give. So some people still use the word donations, and that's fine, but I like investments better. From individuals or people who investors. In turn, the investors can write off the amount of the investments to reduce their taxable income. Age is one determinant in the way in which people invest in nonprofits. Let's talk about when people give money. We always say, you know what? If you give us some money or if you invest in our nonprofit, you can write it off. But what does that actually mean? Let's say that a person makes $50,000 per year and they want to reduce their taxable income by $10,000, meaning they only want to pay taxes on $40,000. They can donate or invest $10,000 to a official 501c3 nonprofit organization and write off $10,000. So they're taking their $50,000 salary down to $40,000, which reduces their taxable income. So that's why saying you can invest and write off your investment is such an enticing offer to people who want to lower their tax liabilities. So use that to your advantage. But when we talk about investments, you can't ask for investments the same way for everybody. Like I said here, age is one determinant in the way in which people invest in nonprofits. So I want to take a look at, take a look at some generational ages that you need to cultivate relationships with by creating specialized or customized investment strategy approaches. Traditional generation, people born between 1900 and 1945. You want to think about how would I approach a person in this generation, the traditional generation. Am I going to say you can follow me on TikTok? Absolutely not. Your approach to this generation of people will be different from how you approach other generations. The baby boomers, people born between 1946 and 1964, your approach to them should be different than you would approach the traditional generation even. You want to create revenue generation strategies based on the generations you target. That takes extra time, of course, but it's worth it The last thing you want to do is insult people by approaching them the wrong way. Then you have Generation X, people born between 1965 and 1980. And Generation Y, the millennials born between 1981 and 2000. And then you have now Generation Z, people born between 2001 all the way up to 2000 and now 25. And then you have another generation that I heard about that's coming along. But my point is, you want to cultivate relationships appropriately based on a person's age. The way you approach them is depending upon their age, and you have to create customized strategies to be successful in that endeavor. So again, cultivating relationships. What does that mean when you say cultivate? Cultivate means you should not expect an investment the first time you talk to the person. You should not expect to take someone out to coffee or to treat someone to coffee and they write a check or give you a cash app or whatever at that meeting. You haven't cultivated relationship. You are introducing them to what you offer, but you haven't developed a relationship with them yet. So you shouldn't expect them to give you money. You want to call them back, ask them what they think about your presentation, what impressed them, what concerns them. That's cultivating a relationship with investors, and it takes time, but it pays off over time if you do it the right way. So after meeting with investors several times to discuss the benefits our programs will provide the communities we serve, they tend to make investments. They tend to say, okay, I believe you and I'm going to be an investor. When investors make financial contributions to our organizations, we must use the steps below to further cultivate relationships with them and also to encourage them to tell other people about us too. Tell your friends what we're doing. So you want to acknowledge the investment immediately by either a text message, an email, a phone call. Remember, all of this is contingent upon the age range of the people you're talking to. You want to invite investors to volunteer their services. Some investors want to really get involved with the nonprofit organization. So they want to volunteer to see for themselves firsthand how their investments are making a difference. And a great way to do that is to volunteer. Invite investors to make comments or suggestions on what's going on. Allow clients to thank the investors. If you have clients and if the investors are open to it, the clients can reach out to them themselves and say, from a personal standpoint, your investment is helping me learn how to use computers, whatever the case may be. You want to send quarterly evaluation reports to the investors every quarter, 4 times a year. Send them a report, let them know how their money is being used, the success stories and things that are going on. And then host an investor appreciation dinner with the clients and with other stakeholders in your nonprofit organization to show them how much you appreciate their investments. And I promise you, you will get more investments from them if you do these things. Grant writing. Grant writing is another way to generate revenues by writing grant proposals in response to requests for proposals or RFPs. The standard grant proposal includes 10 components. I'm not going to get into those today. That's not the purpose of this presentation. This presentation is to help you learn ways to diversify your revenues. If you want to learn more about grant writing, I invite you to take one of my grant writing classes. Grant funders expect grant proposals to focus on the solutions to the problem more than the problem. Don't spend so much time in your grant proposal talking about the problem. More than likely, they already know the problem, but you want to spend your time talking about how your nonprofit will solve the problem. Therefore, 10% of the grant proposal should clearly describe the problem, and 90% of the grant proposal should explain the solution to the problem. What is your nonprofit organization going to do about the problem? Okay? Now let's talk about the process of putting this all together. Let's say that your nonprofit organization needs $65,000. I'm all about creating a revenue generation team. You need a revenue generation team in order to successfully generate revenues consistently for your nonprofit organization. So the executive director has already said, based on what we plan to do in the community, we're going to need $65,000. That's already been done. So now the revenue generation team is divided into three teams. You have the grant writing team manager, fundraising team manager, and the ambassadors team manager. The grant writing team includes RFP researchers, people who find grant funding, the grant writers, and the proofreaders. And the revenue generation team manager has assigned this team $30,000. So their assignment is to generate $30,000 from grant writing. The fundraising team is assigned $25,000, and the ambassadors team is assigned $10,000. That's how you should work this. Now, the fundraising team includes traditional fundraisers and social media fundraisers. They are tasked with raising $25,000. The ambassadors team, those are the people who are ambassadors for the nonprofit organization. They are the foot soldiers going out, meeting people, networking with people, getting on the phone, calling people. Well, the revenue generation team manager has assigned them the task of raising $10,000 for the nonprofit organization. So you want to create something similar to this in order to generate revenues consistently. So let's summarize and review what we've learned. Congratulations. Our discussion regarding revenue diversification strategies for nonprofit concludes. We're at the end. You learned different revenue generation strategies such as client fees, product fees, fundraisers, investments, and grant writing. Remember, your budget dictates the amount of money your nonprofit needs to operate. Use different revenue generation strategies to meet the budget. Once again, you can scan this QR code to download this free guide that we just went through, to print it, to study it again, to listen to me in this presentation as you go through it, to write notes, whatever you want to do. But this is your free DIY guide, do-it-yourself guide, called Revenue Generation Strategies for Nonprofits. Again, I'm Susan Woods, and I have my own nonprofit organization that I started in 2006, well, 2003 unofficially, but 2006 officially 501c3 status. I complete the 501c3 application package for private clients across the United States. I've been doing that since 2010, and my approval rating is 100% with 400 clients representing 33 states. I facilitate in-person and online classes for nonprofit leaders. I believe in lifelong learning, so I completed 3 nonprofit management certificates, one from Duke, one from Winthrop, and one from Wake Forest. And I am also a 3-time graduate of Winthrop University. My passion, ladies and gentlemen, is helping people help people. We are in a rough patch right now, especially nonprofit organizations that has been relying on federal government grant funding. Federal. I didn't say anything about local city grant funding. I didn't say anything about county grant funding. I didn't say anything about state grant funding, because those grant funding sources are still available. It's the federal that's giving us trouble right now. That's why I wanted to reach out to you, create this revenue diversification strategies do-it-yourself guide to give you some ideas that you can implement to diversify your nonprofit's revenue generation strategies. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you supporting me. My website is www.trustsusanwoods.com. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel so you don't miss any of my presentations. My goal is to upload a presentation at least once a week. But subscribe so you don't miss it, and like it so that you can help my algorithm. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time, and have a great day.